The concept of a curative therapy, I mean, we don't use that term lightly, but a curative type of therapy that a cell or a gene therapy can potentially deliver is really powerful. It's powerful for many stakeholders, most importantly the patient, but also for payers, the healthcare system, so the fact that that is actually an investable opportunity is really exciting for investors. I think the other dimension of this is that I think the science has come a long way compared to where it used to be 15 years ago, 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. The regulators have also come a long way. And so once you have these various stakeholders, the science being better, the regulators being more receptive to it, it makes it very exciting for investors to be participating in this space.
For us, it's not different than any other type of investment. If it's a small molecule, antibody or medical device, we're looking for very, very strong management teams. We are an entrepreneur-centric VC, so we want teams that are very, very sophisticated, perhaps that are second or third time entrepreneurs, that have identified a very, very unique scientific problem, that are able to generate clinical data successfully in the clinic, and that have an understanding of the development plan and the regulatory space and the health economics that minimizes the risks of those investments.
We do have a lot of different funding mechanisms, so it is very hard to pinpoint of what makes a successful funding application. But if I think generally, I think that science has to be excellent. It has to be very well explained. You have to think, what are you applying for? So more basic research, have to pinpoint to your ideas and how you're going to develop them. More clinical research or development types of application will have to include all your steps to bringing a product to the patient. So science has to be excellent. Then we have to look at the impact, because this is the second biggest criterion when looking at the European applications. We need to be very clear what we are developing the therapy for, how it is going to change the life of the patient, probably how the healthcare is going to be delivered, or how it's going to address a significant medical need for the community and the patient. And third, but obviously understandable, it is the business part, the management part. It's all about the people that are going to be able to implement those projects. And if I'm looking at all our applications, very many of them have this management and business component, which is relatively weak. Sometimes wonderful ideas, but it isn't think through of how we are going to bring them into practice. One has to remember that these are very diverse technologies, sometimes considered quite risky, whereas the science is not very well elucidated from the very beginning. As a consequence, there is an impetus for public funders to come in and fund the academic investigators, the small or the medium enterprises that are engaging in the first steps of research, in the preclinical and probably in the early clinical part of it, to create the evidence that then would help a venture capital fund or an industrial partner to step in, either develop the technology as a private company or probably absorb the technology within a larger company. So there are a lot of challenges, in particular in those early stages, for innovators to fund their projects and later on to develop them, because of course the cell and gene therapy products are each and every one different from the other. There are very few that can be grouped around portfolios, and as a consequence one has to innovate at every step. So I do believe that this balance will shift probably in the next 2 or 3 years, with much more involvement of the private funders, as these technologies mature. So I guess we are on the right path towards success.
The way we see it, the current challenges in the gene and cell therapy space is, for example, the ability to find indications where you can very well streamline the development. I think we are starting to see some companies that are doing that. I think in the past, perhaps we saw companies that are aiming at the broader space. I think that was a challenge. What we see, happening more and more is that we see perhaps narrow indications where companies are very focused in the indication and are going to engage the regulatory agencies in the right way to bring those products forward.
I think from a fundamental perspective, they are really unleashing the potential of transformational science to bring transformational breakthroughs for patients. And that potential was always there, I would say, for the past several decades, but what we're seeing now is that they're just getting closer to reality. And the closer we get to major breakthroughs for patients, the more attractive it is for the industry to invest in it, and that's why it's really contributing to substantial growth in the industry.
We are going to perhaps see a bigger number of companies formed, and especially we're going to see more clinical data coming forward. At the moment we see some phase 1, phase 2 early clinical stage data. We're going to see more consolidated clinical data and more products reaching the market in the next 12 months. Of course, the generation of exciting clinical data is going to fuel more investments in the space and hopefully more products into the market.
There are a lot of technologies that are in phase 1 and phase 2 clinical trial. Some of them are entering in phase 3. So I do believe that those would create a lot of new results, quite exciting. They're looking good. And based on those results, I do expect that the larger pharmaceutical industry will be much more engaged into this area.